Good afternoon, everybody. As you can see, my name is Xian Jie. I'm a social worker from South Central FSC. We decided to do it a bit different because I will feel very constipated if I sit and talk. So I'm here today with Hidayah. She'll get to introduce herself in a while. And this is interesting because the past few hours, the whole day, we've been talking about ideas, right? What does it look like to collaborate with service users, members, your clients, whichever term you prefer. And our topic is solutions that help us help one another. And our presentation today is actually a co-presentation about one of our projects that we're doing. So we have a live collaboration here. So maybe this is the solution that one of the solutions that could help everybody here, So I'm going to introduce Hidayah. Before that, as you can see from our title, our slide title, what we are doing is, for me, from a professional point of view, right, it's a participatory action research. Our very boring title is called Moms Collective. That's the official social worky title that we have. But at the same time, the moms, they have their own separate group, and they are, look at their name, Hey Mama, so much more interesting than what social workers can think of. And so we have this wonderful mama here with us today. So for Hidayah, we get Hidayah to introduce herself and what she wants to share.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm really honored to be here today to share about Moms Collective or Hey Mama. I'm actually one of the community connectors for South Central Family Service Center.
Yeah, she's very nervous. So give her some help. And next slide. It died. It's black color.
You press correctly.
Yes, sorry. So what exactly are we doing? So again, as a professional head, this is what we will call a participatory action research. In particular with this group of low-income mothers. They have kids around the age of 0 to 6 years old, and they live in rental communities. So that is, in my professional mind, what I'm doing. And we collaborate with the moms. As it says, it's participatory. So that is my definition. What about you? What do you think, actually?
For me personally, it's actually a support system for mothers by the mothers of the community.
So what we do now at this moment is every month, they meet twice. As you can see, some of the pictures are there. In 1 month, there's a discussion time, and the other one is the activity time. And it's entirely organized by the moms themselves. So at this stage, they just tell me when they want to meet, the dates. Then I'll book the venue. We provide child-minding services. I'm a permanent child-minder. It's a very sad. Children are fun. Must tell myself. So that's how we are organizing ourselves now. We're going to share a bit more about what we discussed in a while. But before that, so why do we want to do this? So again, my hat is I'm a social worker. One of the things that I cannot avoid is this word called casework. So a bit of murmurs here. But in social services, so one of the things that you might observe is that majority of service users, they are female. You might see that in everywhere across Singapore. And in the nature of my work, I'm a male social worker. And then when I encounter service users that are female, sometimes there's a bit of a barrier here. So example, the mother may be experiencing spousal violence, for example. They have absent fathers in their own family unit. They want to talk about things like breastfeeding, or do they talk to a male about it, right? So there's a bit of a challenge there, right? And another thing is, again, as a male social worker, am I just another male figure in their life telling them what to do? Because you hear stories like the husband doesn't allow them to go out to work. And then they come and see me, and then then is it another male telling them what to do? And we have very different cultural identities most of the time. So then this led to this curiosity. So instead of social worker, right, we plan all these fancy case plans and all that. So instead of doing that, what would happen if women themselves were to be the leaders of this poverty transformation journey? They themselves take charge of this. What would it look like? So in that curiosity, we decided to do this thing called this PAR. And to kickstart that process, we had a conversation with a few mothers. So Hidayah was one of our members who started this conversation that led to this whole project. Okay, so that's social work thinking of why I want to do this. Okay, and we invited Hidayah to have this conversation. So actually for you, Hidayah, why do you agree to continue? You know, they might get conned by me or Cynthia. Okay, Cynthia was ex-staff.
Okay, for me personally, because based on my own experience, previously I was a stay-home mother for a few years. So when I decided to venture out to the working environment, I realized that I didn't know how to communicate with adults anymore. Because I've been communicating with children, and apparently my husband is my mother-in-law's children. So it's another children. So after communicating with children, I realized that when I went out to work, I don't know how to communicate with my colleagues, even my superiors. So that's the main reason I started job hopping. And it was not a best solution for me, because for me to stabilize myself and to help to stabilize my family, I realized that I need to do something about it. So then pandemic struck. So when pandemic struck, I was given the opportunity to work as a part-time temperature screener at FSC. So during that time, I realized that my current partner, who is also doing Moms Collective together with me, also faced the same thing. So when both of us realized that actually we need to do something to help other mothers who are also experiencing the same thing, because I'm sure the mothers in my community, one way or another, is also facing the same thing as us. So that's when Xian Che and other social workers approached us, we realized that, okay, maybe this is one way how we can help the mothers in our community. So that's what started Moms Collective.
Okay, so I never conned her. Okay, so she herself chose. Okay, so this is how our partnership formed. Okay, if you realize now we do everything together, see, co-present together and share everything together, the decision making. Okay, so so this is the part about the research part, okay, or at least the professional will say research. What did we actually find out? Okay, so if you imagine this needs assessment of sorts, okay, for this, I don't have time to poll you all. So what I did is last week in my class in NUS, I go and ask social work students, okay, this question: what are some challenges that come to your mind when you think of low-income mothers in rental housing? Okay, so you all can take 2 seconds to think on your own. This is what the social work students say. So it's sort of a proxy representation of the professional head. They will say things like childcare. Okay, so that features quite a lot. Childcare, finances. There's a lot of stress, caregiver stress. Related to finances, there's a bit on employment, okay, and budgeting. So it's like similar theme there. Okay, so this is what a professional may think. Sort of a voice, right? As a social worker, if I design a program or a group work, these are some of the topics that might come up with. I don't know whether you might come up with the same topics. So instead of doing this, the participatory approach, right? We instead let the mothers decide what they want to talk about. So we didn't have any say, it's just facilitation. And maybe Hidayah, you want to share what the mothers actually want to talk about?
Okay, so after discussion with the mothers of Moms Collective, we realized that the topic that has always been brought up by social workers are actually not the main topic that the mothers want to talk about. So the main topic, the 4 main topics that we got from the mothers are actually stress management, postnatal depression, childcare arrangement, and child abuse. So what we meant by child abuse is that, for example, our current generation children, they are not brought up the way that most of their parents are brought up. So for most of their parents are brought up with corporal punishments. So in this current generation, when we use corporal punishment, it has already been seen as child abuse to children. So that's where the mothers are not sure whether if they use that kind of punishments towards their children, will that account as child abuse? So that's when it's one of the issues that the mothers have brought up. And we are still getting like professional help and all to ask whether is it okay or not. So we have not really go into discussion about child abuse because this is like more in-depth, right? So we did stress management in our previous activity. And when we did stress management, we actually group up the mothers to their different kind of stress that they need to counter at home. So apparently the mothers have different stress that they are more concerned of. So when we group them in groups, we help them share with one another how individually they manage this stress. And I can say the mother's feedback was like, oh, okay, at least I learned something new. So I can try another way how to manage this stress rather than how I have been managing it all this while. So from there, we can see that the mothers learned something and also benefited them in one way or another lah. And then postnatal depression is because one of our mothers is currently pregnant and she's about to give birth. Postnatal depression has never came across her mind. But when other mothers bring it up, because they are afraid that the mother may experience it in this pregnancy, that's when she say, hey, actually this is a good discussion because I may not know I'm going through postnatal depression. So that's why we came up with one of these options also. And childcare arrangement, I think it's the most common topic that all mothers are afraid of because sometimes they are unable to put their children in childcare. So what is the other alternative for them rather than just put them in childcare? So that's where we decided to make it a discussion topic for all the mothers lah, so that the mothers can share with one another other alternative also.
Okay, to add to that, right, actually the process, the social worker is not involved in this. Okay, so the social worker, again, we have two staff as part of the mom's discussion. They are there for note-taking. Okay, and the main facilitator is actually Hidayah and another mother, and we provide the support to her. Okay, so in case they get a bit stuck, then we come in. But it's really the moms themselves facilitating the discussion in this. Okay, and apart from talking about problems, okay, very stressed, right? We talk about problems all the time. So the other month, meeting in that month, we do activities. Okay, so you want to share about activities?
Okay, so far we have managed to do 2 activities and one coming up on the 11th of October. So the first activity we did was the floral arrangement. For the floral arrangement, our main goal is to let the mummies relax and have some me time because child minding is there, so the children are not with us. So then, and the mothers realize that they actually need this time for themselves to actually find their inner peace. Then after that, we did baking. So baking was done in before Teachers' Day because I'm sure most of the mothers in my community also feels the same way that I do. When my children go to school on Teachers' Day and see their friends give their teachers gift, and due to financial constraint, we are unable to prepare them any gift to be given to their teachers. So we don't want our children to feel left out based on this. So we came up with this baking so that all the mothers in my community, we actually get one volunteer to help us, teach us, the mothers, how to bake cookies. So from this activity, the mothers managed to make mini cookies to be given to the teachers for their children on Teachers' Day, so that the children won't feel left out lah. So that's one way I think that we can help the mothers to ease their burden a bit, so that you don't have to come out financially to buy gifts for their teachers. So in future, they already have the basic of baking. In future, anything they can just bake and give to Teachers' Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so it's like for the more professional language, right? It's more normative dignity kind of needs that no financial assistance program will think of. We don't give FA so that you can provide Teachers' Day present, right? But that's part of everyday life, and that's the daily reality of mothers in the community, and that's what we want to support, okay? Because that's really what they want. And the outcome of this, our almost last slide.
Okay, so from what we found out from doing these activities, the mothers are that all the topics that are brought up by social worker for them is not necessarily what they want help in. So we want them to feel that, oh, they have a say in this. So let them come up with a topic so that we can discuss the topic that they actually want to talk, but not to social workers. Because some mothers do not want to talk certain things to their social workers or even other government organization. So that's where I think we as the community connectors step in to be like a pillow for them to fall on first before so we can get help from the social worker if there's a need to lah. And then one thing I realized, because I've been in other community group works, and this is the first community group work that we have. We started in July actually. So July up till now, we have 8 regular members. None of them missing out any events in between. So that's where I realized that, okay, this is something actually the mothers are interested in, and they are willing to come up, like spend a few hours of their time just to spend with us to achieve something for themselves lah. And then one thing that is really like happy for me is that even though there is no need for them to tell me that they are not turning up, they still took the initiative to just text me and tell me, hey, I'm not coming today. So it's like, I feel like, oh, okay, they acknowledge my effort and they don't want my effort to go to waste, and they inform me so that I won't prepare myself for them. So that's one thing I realized that is different from other social works that I have been involved in lah.
And I have to admit that also, because even the FSC, right, from a social worker point of view, again, we organize group work. I think some of you might have encountered this problem, right? After a while, then you see suddenly the attendance drop, disappear, so don't know where they go. This one is a bit scary for me because I have to do child minding, okay? They keep coming, and so it's a happy problem, okay? I have many kids to take care of all the time, but it's a good problem, right? And to me, it's the testament of the ownership that they have in this group, because they have the space to feel that they belong here in this group, okay? So our last point is what we have learned through this process.
Okay, for me personally, I'm actually a very introvert person. So for me to come up here today is another challenge for me. And I managed to overcome the challenge, thankfully to all those who come and support me. And I realized that after being in this Moms Collective, I'm more empathetic towards the mothers, and I realized that I'm not the only one facing all this. So I don't have to feel alone, don't have to feel like, everything is under me now. So I have other support system now where I can share and they can tell me their ways on how to manage. So that I myself can manage my stress and everything else that is going through within the community lah.
Okay, you miss out one very important thing, the confidence.
Oh yeah. Like I say, now I'm here, so I'm more confident. I've managed to get the courage to be more confident and feel more confident about myself lah.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so she's learning a lot about herself, okay, through this process. For myself, as a social worker, as I reflect, one main point is people can actually self-organize and participate if we create the right platforms for them, right? And we create the platforms that provide agency, ownership, help to build that belonging. It does work. Mothers can self-organize. And that should be the role, one of the roles of social workers, right? We should not just casework is there, like, okay, casework is there, but it's also doing platform organizing, community organizing, so that such groups can be very alive, okay? And the last thing, to be community-centric, it takes a partnership. It's not that because I do so much, that's why it works, or it's not that Hidayah do so much connecting that it works. It's a partnership between all three, and we talk a lot about collaboration. And to me, what really makes collaboration work, one of the key criteria is equal partnership, equal voice and power, decision-making power in anything, so that we all have this sort of sense of agency and belonging to this project. Okay, so hopefully this offers you a solution. One of the types of solutions is our experiment that we're trying, and we'll be happy to take questions later. Okay, so give a round of applause to Hidayah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Hidayah and Xianjie. May I now invite Mr. Adrian Tan for the second presentation on stage, please.
Testing. Hey, hi everyone. Sorry, just like the other group, they promised not to use slides. Our group decided that we all stand. So a little bit different for that. So thank you everyone for coming here. I'm Adrian, one of the co-founder for SG Assist. I think we have many friends here who have already known about us. So I'll just kind of like go straight to some self-introduction for some of you who have never heard about us. So Greg and myself co-founded SG Assist because we were all caregiver. For myself, I caregive for my mother, who kind of like 15 years ago got her first breast cancer and got into depression, and then again breast cancer. So because of that, I became the main caregiver because I'm the elder son, and because she thought that my father got affair out there because of a depression. And I like to joke about this because I don't think my dad would do that because he's not so good looking. So quite hard for him. I would say the chance is rare. Wouldn't say that. Okay, so because of that, I do a lot of things. I don't want to go into too depressing details, such as how I take care of my mother and so on, but it was a journey that I guess wasn't easy for a lot of people, including myself. So we decided to come out to do something different for everyone. So the first thing that we did was that we kind of like created a mobile app using our own savings. The six of us, macam very rich like that, but we wasn't. And we created this mobile app using, without having any technology concept or knowledge how to do it, but we just kind of figured it out. And since then, right now we have about 6,000 volunteers island-wide and about 10,000 users. Not a lot compared to other apps. But one thing that we focus a lot about how we build our ecosystem is that we build on trust. And that, I'm not sure whether it's good or bad, but we kind of like get ourselves very involved as well. So one of the things that we recently kind of like very grateful is that there's this elderly couple that we have helped. The husband has passed on. We supported the wife, and just recently she passed on as well. And gratefully, the family even invited Greg and myself to the hospice to visit her the last time before she passed on. So this is some of the work that we appreciated a lot, that we get to be involved in people's life, knowing that how important it is for them as well. So this is how it works. I think there was some mention about time banking and stuff. Our concept was kind of like influenced by time banking as well, but we didn't believe that time as a credit is the way to go in Singapore because we're also practical people, right? Time equals to money and everything. So we decided that why not let's try out this concept in a very different way. So we allow people to kind of like reward stars to their volunteers, and the volunteers can use the stars to donate to charities, redeem for staff to give back to their beneficiaries or those people that they help. And so far, we are likely to move on to the next phase of our so-called pilot, that we hope that more people can adopt such a concept. So some of the use case that we have in the community, during the pandemic, we actually helped quite a significant amount of seniors to navigate the whole situation. We found some of them going hungry for 5-6 days because they don't know whether they can go out, and starving along their way, until we found about them and sent food to them. We provide ad hoc necessities and meal deliveries, linking them to social services and charities or even telemed services. So one of the things that I think, again, I was also given homework by Justina, just like what the rest of the panelists say. So this is one of the homework. So we also built support circles for some of the service users in our app. So when we know that their case were very complex, we actually, based on the location that they stay, we find about 4 or 5 volunteers to form that support group for them. So wherever they need any ad hoc help, wherever they need any form of support, there's these 5 volunteers within the community that can support them based on what they need. And we don't decide what they want. They will be the one who tell our volunteers what they can help them on. So as time goes by, we start to kind of like, based on our understanding and what they share with us, we will ask, hey, we can link you up to food bank or we can link you up to a social worker or medical social worker or breast cancer foundation, whichever the case. We based on their needs, we suggest to them, and when they say yes, that's where we will do the referral. And as we are not really a charity or a social services, so writing referral is a pain to us because we don't know what we're doing, to be fair. But we just kind of like write down whatever that we know and we can find out from them and send it over. And that's how we actually choose to help. So this is one of the, we like to use her a lot because she's very interesting. She's a national swimmer. After she gave up competitive swimming and stuff like this, she started her own swim school. And during her free time, she was constantly looking for opportunity to volunteer. But always got into some problem here and there. The time doesn't match. The volunteer has certain requirement, need to go for training. She didn't really have time for that. So until she found about us, and she constantly volunteered in our app, helping seniors to go for medical appointment, met a lot of other fellow volunteers that actually wanted to help more people out there together as a group. So this is some of the persona of volunteers that we have. They are mostly between mid-20s to 50s, have a full-time job, studies, or even on national service. They want to volunteer but unable to commit long-term. In fact, actually, you can tell, I'm not sure whether it's fair for me to say this, but Singaporeans don't like responsibility. We don't like commitment. So, but they want to help. Generally, they want to help. Then prefers to volunteer during their pockets of free time and, if possible, within their own neighborhood. So these are some of the, I would say, the things that I collated, kind of like putting up together what we have been doing so far. We provide ad hoc assistance to buy groceries, extra hands for the social workers or their caregivers. In fact, we have a lot of our service users in the app that put out requests is actually social workers, because they just need an extra hand to kind of like bring their beneficiaries to go for medical appointment. They just need an extra hand for someone to come over to declutter the house. One of the things that I think our platform is quite amazing is that when a social worker put out and says that, hey, I have one of my senior beneficiary needed to change or do plumbing service or pest termination, and they don't have the money to do so. Just putting out a few requests, one volunteer donate $50, the other volunteer donate $100. It becomes like an ad hoc volunteer, like a donation platform in some way or another that goes directly to the beneficiary. So let's see. Yeah, so the circle of support I think I mentioned earlier on, basically we kind of like built on to the neighbors to actually form that circle for the service user that we help. And lastly, the community awareness, as we kind of like gradually encourage people who wants to volunteer. And I think for Chinese, we have the saying that 人之初性本善. I think all of us always wanted to help, but it takes two hands to clap. And one of the things that SGSCs believe in is that if we can give them this opportunity to just volunteer even once, at their convenience, at the time that they can, eventually this person will continue to volunteer in one way or another. And that's where we have a lot of successful cases whereby first-time volunteers eventually volunteer with the social organization that we work with or the social worker that they met. So then we want to remain as this kind of like platform to keep volunteers engaged or aware about the surrounding. So maybe I'm a very active volunteer right now because I'm super free right now, not doing anything, no boyfriend, no girlfriend, that kind of stuff. But eventually you have newborn babies, or you have a very clingy girlfriend that you have no time for any other things. But at least when you keep the app, keep our app inside your phone, you can be constantly reminded that, hey, there's someone who needs help out there. And when time arises that I can contribute, I can be there to help. So then, since we are here because we wanted to support caregivers, we didn't just stop at the mobile app, and because the mobile app can really earn money, it was really something that we wanted to create because of our passion of helping caregivers. To be fair, we wanted to be sustainable, but we couldn't find an effective way. So ended up we become a social enterprise to actually sell a service, and this is what we try to do. So basically, we started this call center. I'm using the word call center, but they are not exactly a call center. We hired PWDs, persons with disabilities. We hired ex-caregivers and seniors to become our telecare agent. And what we do is that we install home monitoring devices like SOS button, fall detection devices, so that caregivers can engage our service on a monthly basis for us to take care of their loved ones. So we respond to the emergency. If there's no emergency, we will check in with their elderly parents on a weekly basis, so that we are not here to replace the warmth that they wanted from their loved ones. We are here to build a friendship with them, at the same time keeping them safe, and give the caregiver the peace of mind to focus on their work, so that they can continue to do better or do more for their loved ones at home. So we also help some of the social services that we work with to tap on to what we have, is to actually improve their infrastructure of taking care of their beneficiaries who are aging in the community. So I know in the rental flat we may have the pull cord system or the personal alert button, but as we expand to help more seniors who may be staying at 3-room, 4-room, or 5-room flat, they may not have the pull cord system. So this is where, as we provide more jobs to the seniors that we train to be our care agent, they eventually, we can even support more elderlies out there who can benefit from this service. So this is how it looks like. Other than providing 24 hours care support, which is just to monitor them, making sure that nothing goes wrong with them, we actually do a call-in, a check-in with them. We try to collaborate with SCDF so that we can escalate help faster. And eventually, we actually work with the caregivers to see how we can support their loved ones better. And this is a series of devices that we are going to implement for some of our seniors aging in the community, because we believe that eventually we will run out of nursing home, run out of daycare, and all our family members will want to age in their own home. And in fact, there was a research recently saying that 80% of the senior responded to a survey saying that they would rather age in their own home if there's an option for them to do so. So together with all these devices, that's where we wanted to use our care assist to actually train more community care agents to take care of our elderly aging in the community, supporting their family members, and working closely with all the social services to take care of them. So we are not here to overlap whatever all the SSA are doing, but we are here to complement them by bringing more community members to actually join us in doing this. And when we say community care agents, they are actually seniors or low-income families, persons with disability that could benefit from this as a micro job, as we provide the training to them, how to render help to people, and so on. So right now we have already, for one of the projects that we're doing right now, even though we're only recruiting 30 seniors to join us as a telecare agent, we have oversubscribed to 120. Which means that we have another 4 batches of community carers that is likely to be trained out for this purpose. So this is our social impact goals. We want to make caregiving product and service more accessible for everyone, lowering their cost of living as we kind of like bring all the concentration all together. We want to lighten caregiving loads to prevent caregivers from burning out, and therefore they can provide better care to their loved ones. We want to enable aging in place, because even my grandfather, I remember, he was struggling in the hospice care until the day that we brought him home. Immediately, the next day he passed on because he didn't want to die alone in the hospital. So then, to promote independent living and improve quality of life. And lastly, provide self-help options for underserved community. So this is a dream that we wanted. Although the header is macam like the recent newspaper, everything you keep seeing, but it was a dream that we wanted to promote. How can we create a platform where Singaporeans can volunteer to help one another, together with all this smart home monitoring and a telecare service, we can create a healthier neighborhood and healthier community. So yeah, I'm done. So I think, wow, yeah, very timely. Okay, meet my KPI. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Adrian. May I now invite Hidayah and Cynthia back on stage for the Q&A segment. The Q&A segment will be moderated by Justin.
Thank you so much, all of you, for doing this. I mean, I really liked what you were doing, but hearing the details of it makes me very impressed with all the stuff you're doing. I had this vague understanding of it, and now I'm super impressed. In the previous sessions, there were some angry people who said, "Hey, why Justin? Why you have Paul enough but never asked the question?" Because I must apologize because I was too engrossed in the dialogue, right? they never attend to the questions that are being asked. So for now, it's just all questions from you and nothing from me. Anybody want to go to the mic? You get a jump queue. If not, we have the first question. This is for Mums Collective. How do the collective decide when and how to seek help from the social workers when the issues discussed amongst mothers may require escalation to external help? Does that make sense?
Hello. Okay. So for us, right, the connectors of Mums Collective, when we realize that the mothers are facing something that we as mothers are unable to comment on or give advice on, we will always bring it up during our debrief session to our social workers, because we have a few social workers who are doing the debrief with us also. So we will always seek help from them to get their opinion and to get whether is this a matter that is concerning that they need to step in. So we don't usually comment so much on the mother's question, because we also don't want to give unnecessary advice or advice that is actually not of a good for them. So but usually for the mothers, we will the questions or anything that they have to bring up, they will tell us personally, and we will tell them that okay, I think this is not something that I can comment on. So do I get your permission to talk to the social worker? And if they agree, then we will approach the social worker, because we want understanding between us and the mother, that because right from the start, we already told the mother that whatever happens during these meetings and also activities is not to be shared openly, because sometimes secrets are shared or even feelings that they have not shared are being shared during the activity. But if there are, for instance, things that are really of a concern even for us, we do inform our social worker, because we also don't want to take the unnecessary risk lah.
Do you inform your social worker with the permission of the person involved, or because it's so sensitive, you might check in no matter what?
We do always ask for their permission lah, because it's a group where they trust us. So we don't want to break that trust.
I would say we present quite. It looks quite simple, but actually there's a lot of work behind the scenes. So we talked about a meeting, right? So the moms having a meeting. Before that, actually, my own team, the social workers, they're all seated there. We have our own internal meeting first, and then we have another meeting with the two moms who are the facilitators. And then we have the actual session. After the actual session, there's also another debrief. So I have 4 meetings just to run one discussion. But this is where there's that coordination and communication, right? What certain issues that emerge, and whether the social worker need to step in or step out. This is where the discussion is lah. So there's multiple sort of platforms in between. So not just that discussion space, but there's a lot of behind the scenes work. Okay, so that helps with that lah.
The next question is also for both of you. Kudos to the Mums Collective. Could you please share some challenges you encountered during the participatory research process? How did you get the mums on board the journey? Are there any hiccups along the way?
Okay, for me personally, initially, the problems, I think it's common for any group work, that the mothers are shy to share at first. So they are more unwilling to tell us about their feelings or to tell us what they actually really feel. So it was tough for us at first, because we want to have their genuine feeling, because that's the main goal for this Mums Collective, because we don't want them to look at us as if we are another social worker or another government body where they cannot express themselves freely. So, but thankfully, after the second event, all the mothers are more comfortable. I even have one mommy here with me, supporting me today. And she attended the event, and she even made me promise to make sure I tell her of the next event. So that's where I realized that actually the mothers are starting to be more comfortable with us around. That's make us more motivated to do more for the mothers lah. And so far for hiccups, thankfully from all the activities and all the discussion, we have not encountered any, and hopefully we won't. just trying our best not to lah.
From the so I will add the pre-work. Okay, so this is before all these series of events start. The first thing is, I think a lot of people might face their own worker anxiety. Okay, because my boss is here also. Okay, but it's good to have an understanding boss. Okay, because I'll tell my boss, right, I got this idea, but I have no guarantee of any sort of success because I'm not going to force anybody to come. I don't even know what they want to talk about. But boss say can, okay, so can do lah, okay. But then there's this anxiety to sort of produce some result, right? Because you're investing so much time. Okay, we spend a lot of time training them also. And then there was this point in time where because the training started was last year in the July or something last year, and only until this year July, so a whole year before we stabilize the group and have this kind of discussions. So one is whether you can wait that one whole year. Is a very long time sometimes, and we talked about it earlier, right? Sometimes if you want community involved, you need that time. Whether your agency has that available space for you to wait that long. Because sometimes things like, because we depend on the mums for facilitation. There was one point in time, they got COVID at different point in time. So then no facilitator, then how? So then you have to delay everything, right? We cannot step over their role, okay? Because that's one of our principles that we have. So these challenges come along the way. So it's good to have good boss, okay? Understanding boss that I got no result, but it will come soon, okay? The other question, there's a question on like how we get them, is it? How
do you get them on board the process? Any hiccups?
Okay, so I have to admit, okay, so Cynthia is here. So Cynthia is the main staff that actually got the mums on board. She will be the best to answer the question actually. You want to answer? Don't answer.
Let's just go to the, come on lah, come lah, don't shy.
Yeah, so back then during COVID, I was a community worker that we kind of like couldn't do much community work outside. So I kind of like focused using the platform called Goodwill Exchange, which we actually kind of like encourage people to give things. And then one of the things that we realized that during COVID, a lot of mothers are pregnant and they needed clothes and they needed baby stuff. And that's what we have. And that was a nice time to actually let the mothers come and collect. And while they're coming to collect, that was the opportunity for them to meet one another. So in that sense, it was a window of opportunity we took to do that. And because of that, we could get about 40 mothers to come into a group chat. And just through the group chat, sometimes it's quite amazing when one mother just say, I can't sleep at night. And then it started pop, 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 pop. And here we are all sleeping, and the mothers were just chatting and encouraging one another about how she was going home. The mothers, I'm not a mother, so I cannot tell. But that was how it works. And through that, then I saw there was so much commonality, the way they could resonate just on the group chat. And then I thought that that's one way that we should kind of facilitate a platform, and that's where we thought of the collective mums. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Did you want to add anything else?
Actually, for us, right, initially when we had the few mummies on board, after they get comfortable with us, we have no problem getting them to chill their friend to come and join us. So
MLM, is it?
Yeah, like initially we only have 5 members. Then from the 5, we get a new member about every week during discussion. We get a new member, thankfully lah. So that's where we realize that we are actually expanding, but we don't want to expand too fast because we are just afraid that we cannot cope with too many mothers at one time, because we want to try to get them to concentrate on individual mothers. So expanding too fast may be like one of the challenges for us lah.
Thanks. The next question is for Adrian. Have there been challenges you face in working with formal institutions or agencies? And if there was one thing they could help you with, what would you ask for?
Very stressed. Later I say then you all angry how? All of you non-profit. So, okay, I say you all don't angry, but ground issue, okay? So sometimes, because we are not social services and we are not a charity, sometimes when we refer cases to back to the certain organization to help a certain beneficiary, sometimes they don't really see us like who you are to kind of like do this referral. Then they start. Sometimes they even probe us. How do you have PDPA? You know, all this concern. How do you get all this detail of this person? Like 101 problems that we face when we try to help people, but for a good reason. I mean, I'm sure they also care about the beneficiary or the care recipient. So other challenges that we face when we wanted to kind of like refer people to help is that I'm sure a lot of social workers or community worker will be able to empathize that, because sometimes we sense that urgency in this person that he or she really needed help. But when we escalate to a certain organization to request for help, they will say, oh, we will send the social worker down in 3 to 5 days' time to visit the person. Or the food supply may only arrive 2 weeks later. Please put out a request and we will respond to you within 72 hours. But this person is literally running out of food today or maybe tomorrow. So good thing is that we can tap onto our volunteer base to kind of like fill the immediate needs in our app. But sometimes it's just that internal struggle saying that, hey, there's this person that is right in front of my face that could go hungry anytime, that is struggling mentally, with their stress and whatsoever. Recently, we are helping this cancer patient who had to go through chemotherapy and work at the same time because the husband couldn't get a long-term pass long enough to get a job. When I talked to her, I was crying along with her. Supposed to help her, but crying along with her over the phone. I also don't know why. But it was a struggle that we went through in SGSCs, even though we are not really a social services, but I guess we are also doing some form of casework, but informally. Then the third problem that we usually have is that because we are not a non-profit, we are a social enterprise. Because we were 4 years ago or 3 years ago, we were more focused about supporting caregivers. We go around pitching about supporting caregivers, but caregiver wasn't the main highlight in the past. And we had a lot of problem raising fund, and we decided that, hey, you know what, let's be a social enterprise. Let's earn our own money and do what we wanted to do. So because of that, as a social enterprise, we struggle a lot. We had to juggle between being commercial enough to be sustainable, not getting salary paid to ourselves for 2 years or 3 years, while focusing a lot about social impact. But when we work with non-profit organizations and charities, they will say, you're social enterprise. Sorry, got 101 problem that I'm sure all of you can relate. I'm not complaining again. No funding mechanism, social enterprise. I think there will be a wall, a barrier of trust that we have to penetrate in order to really work hand in hand with a lot of social services. So these are some of the things that we face. Yeah.
Would anyone working in the social services like to respond to that? It'd be interesting to hear. Because if not, I'd have to ask the one nearest to me. Maybe just curious, this issue from a social worker point of view, because Adrian's meeting regular people, and regular people are telling him their pains, and they are collecting vials of tears as impact report to their funders. So from a professional social caseworker point of view, are you concerned that people are doing this to Adrian, who's not a trained social worker, or do you think this is actually great, and he should do this, and we should work closely together, or are you concerned that there are red flags here because you're not trained? There's accountability issues. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so yeah, the immediate response, right, might be all these, right? Whether this person is trained, it may not be Adrian, it may be other people, right? Whether the person is trained adequately, know how to respond, etc. It really depends, because it's really contextual. It really depends on the person. Some people are naturally able to maintain certain kind of boundaries, know when to seek help when there is a need to. So it's not impossible. It really depends on the person. And it's also a lot of coordination with that person. Let's say, example, if it happens to be known this is an actual case, right? With a social worker, and there should be some form of coordination with people like agent to share certain information. Obviously, with the hope that there's some consent from the service user. So it's not impossible to work together. I think there are certain cases where we still do this. We collaborate with other partners, right? Other people that might help this person along, so that we can coordinate certain ways of responding that would overall help this person improve. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Anyone want to go to the mics? There are no questions here, no? After just now very angry, then now nobody want to ask question. You don't blame me, then I will just monopolize the conversation. The next thing I want to ask is, so for Adrian, I think that and with all the community workers who work on the ground, there's so many roles that just show up, right? There's our boy, there is teacher, there is, just neighbor and all that. Childminder. And then sometimes you get enmeshed, right? So how do you think about whether you're too enmeshed with the community and people, which means that then you can't step back and focus on your platform because you're trying to meet no longer a case, but a person or a friend who is now in crisis, and you can't just let go, right? In contrast to a more professional caseworker, you're not going to attend the funerals because you need to keep that distance, right? Like doctors don't do surgery on their family members for a very good reason. And I think professional social work tends to also there's some tension there, but, try to somewhat keep a distance. Do you all see this closeness as strength or a problem sometimes? And then you respond, then I ask Jian and maybe Hidayah.
So I think it's I guess this is one of the advantages as a social enterprise, is that we are not bounded by some of the maybe professional rules that I have to abide to. I myself felt that attending the funeral or in all else possible supporting the person at their lowest point of their life is actually very important. Because that's what they really needed. And whether the decision is right or wrong, I'm just trying to be human, trying to be that person that, since I already found out this person, since I already know that this person needed that help. And to me, as a caregiver, there was a point of my time where I really, really needed help. And I remember it was a struggle for anyone out there to say that I need help. I'm not sure whether is it a guy thing or is everyone here, you will face the same struggle. But I think asking for help is not something that was easy. It was either you are so desperately in need of help, or the situation you were in just kind of like forced you to do so. So when someone asks us for help, we know how important it is to be there for them in one way or another. As ourselves or with our volunteer, we will be there. But of course, putting that aside, setting boundary is also something that we're aware of. We try not to get too overly involved. But there's areas or points that we decided that it is something that we need to be there for. So we do protect ourselves also, trying not to get too involved. I mean, I volunteer for maybe close to 15 years now. I was in hospice care, and I know how upset it can be to see someone that you supported for a period of time to pass on. So in somehow, one way or another, I've built that resilient and mechanism or that self-protection mechanism to know how to take a step back when time is right. Without being a professional, I guess, but it was something natural for a human to say that, okay, maybe from this point onward, I should leave it to the professional or the family members to do what they need to do. So, and I'm kind of like turning my own personal experience into something that I could educate other people, such as the care agent that I shared with all of you earlier on, that it is something that we could do to be more human, but yet at the same time be more aware about our own well-being as well. that we need to protect ourselves. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Adrian. I just want to put words in your mouth just to be irritating, right? So Adrian's learned to be human. So the implication is, does that mean the caseworker is less human?
Not necessarily. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So I mean, my immediate response to that is, I think people need to experience your authenticity, your intent. That's helpful. I think specific for this project. Okay. So I think for me, I have a few sort of principles about this boundary issue, like whether I see I'm part of the community or enmesh and all that. The first thing is that my own view is, as an outsider, I'm not part of the community. That's my first base, because I don't have the lived experience of, I mean, I'm not even a mother, I don't stay in rental housing. I'm different, and I have certain powers and privileges that myself hold. So I would myself not describe myself as part of the community because of that. And it's not a bad thing, okay? It's just how we want to work together. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is building a space where it's equal power. So I emphasized that in the presentation, right? Being equal. So an example is, so my role as a social worker is to build this platform, right, where there's equal power sharing. So there's one fine day in our own internal meeting, right? If you remember, I asked the other mother, actually, right, what will happen if I go and join the mom's discussion? Is that possible? Because I'm curious, I want to know what they talk about. And then the other mother, her immediate response, this is a split second. She said, "Aya, you guy you go in permanent child mind." But it's funny, but like, to me, that is the power, equal power, because the mother herself, she just rejected me just like that, even though I'm a social worker, right? But it's also about equal power. We both decide what is best for that collective, and then we move along. Okay, so that equal power is important. And the last point is, for myself, is not just everybody who's trying this work, right, is don't do it by yourself. Okay, so what is helpful is to put yourself within certain sort of like, like a better word, checks and balances. So one thing is that I'm not doing this by myself. I have a team of social workers doing this together. So we have space to talk about it. We also do a lot of check-ins with the moms. Okay, so we're doing this together, right? So if they have certain feedback about me, then yeah, we should share, and then move from there. So that's how we negotiate all these issues, because it's a bit hard to predict what kind of boundary issues may appear, but it is putting in certain mechanisms to catch that. Yeah, so that's my response to that. Yeah.
For me personally, right, because right from the start, we have informed all the mothers that please do not look at us as one of the connectors from FSC. We are a mother just like you, living in a rental flat, facing the same thing as you. We are not superior, or we are not someone who are more higher than you. So we don't want the mothers to feel like, they couldn't be open with us, and they couldn't like tell us whatever they want to tell us, because then it will defeat the purpose. Because if they look at us as someone that will tell them to social worker, then it's the same as just the social worker handling it. So that's where me and my partner we learn how to switch role. So every time during the debriefing or during the briefing with social workers, we try to think and look at it as a point of connectors. But when we are together with the mothers, we switch ourselves as a mother ourselves.
Oh, that's so interesting, because I hadn't thought of that. Is that even amongst the moms collective, the connector has some kind of privilege or power that you have to guard against, that we are one of you, right? We're not. Yeah. That's so interesting. We have another question for Adrian. You are a social enterprise having to balance profit and impact, but sound to have struggled to gain support from race or the non-profit authorities. I suppose that's MSF, MCC, non-profit authorities. What is one way these institutional bodies can support you with?
All the question very difficult. So
we're all friends. It's okay, man.
So both MSF and SCSS don't come in. Not I asked one. So, I mean, as a social enterprise, we also take pride in terms of the social stuff that we are doing. Of course, unlike our non-profit friends, there's an extra mechanism to raise fund from donations and even foundations, for example. But for a social enterprise, I'm sure all of you will think that it's not easy to start a business, let alone one that focuses so much about social. Imagine going forward to talk to an investor saying that, hi, I'm a social enterprise, I'm a for-profit entity, and I'm selling services that can help caregivers and perhaps seniors in the community, and they will ask you how many times returns that you can give it to me. So unlike the charities, my fundraising pathway is not so straightforward like a non-profit, where it's purely based on the heart. You can tell people saying that, hey, give me $100, I will be able to provide food to a family for two weeks. But for a social enterprise, raising funds from the investor is very difficult because we are not highly profitable. Selling a service is also very, very challenging because as a social enterprise, we are so socially focused that, hey, we need to sell cheaper so that we can help more people out there. Then we are almost kind of like just making enough to hire the people that we wanted to hire and paying ourselves bare minimum in order to continue to do what we do. So then I have people coming to us saying that, is this really worth for you to do so? So is social enterprise the right way to go? Maybe this question is for me to ask back to all the funders here. Is social enterprise a bad thing? Or perhaps social enterprise can also receive the same form of attention and support just like charities out there? Is maybe something that some of the funders can consider today.
In fact, that's the next question is, to all the funders, what considerations will you have when funding Moms Collective or SG Assist? Any funder want to volunteer? Yes. You can go to the mic or I can just run to you.
I feel a bit scared now. Like no other funders want to stand up. And Justin has to come to me, even more scared, so I'll come to you. So just very quickly, I think that when we are considering funding ground-ups or social enterprise, I think one challenge we really face is the legal entity. So it's really just how the way the funding structure in Singapore works. So for charities and all that, it's very clear to us in terms of how we can evaluate and understand what the charities is about and the work. But when it comes to a social enterprise, you are neither charitable, even though you have a social mission, and also the legal entity that makes it a little bit difficult for us to understand whether your work is really for profit and there is that charitable good to it. So one of the things that as Community Foundation of Singapore, we did advocate to the government to give us some guidelines around it. Because these days, on the funder side of things, we also have compliance and governance that we have to stick through. So the accountability back to donors and all that is important. So that's one area of it. I think the other part of it is very much about knowing the track record and also what you have been doing. So a part that will help us to move forward in this conversation is to learn how to sort of put it in a way that the results or the work that you do is very clear in terms of some of the outcomes you want to achieve. By this, I'm not asking for fancy reports or draft. I think a good conversation to be able to articulate the role that you're trying to play, as well as some of the results that you hope to see will be very, very helpful. I like to think that the funders have actually evolved over the years in the times that we have been in. And the COVID situation has also opened up an opportunity where the funders have also learned to give more quickly and differently from where they previously have done. So these lessons are also learned at the philanthropy side of things. And they're also trying to figure out how best they can expedite or make this funding available to social enterprises and ground-up groups. So for CFS, what we do is that while we can't give to ground-ups directly, then I'll partner with another organization like the Majority Trust to do it. so that we can bring in the funding, but an entity who is able to do the assessment and evaluation so that we can give the money out into the community. So on the funding side of things, I think the funders are also trying to learn how to do this better. And of course, we also want to know what's good out there, because we are only as good as the projects that we can find to fund, and we acknowledge that maybe we have the money and some of the resources. We may not have the expertise and the knowledge to bring the intervention on the ground. So just a quick feedback. Hope it helps.
Okay, to add, right, okay, if you all didn't see the last slide, actually, Mums Collective, I have to acknowledge sponsor. So actually, our funder, one of our funders for project is the CFS. This Sayang Fund, help you publicize a bit. Sayang Fund, right, you can go and apply. So we have some funds from a funder, okay, so, but we also have to be able to sort of write what you're doing in a way that show some kind of outcome. So it's possible. We actually have the TOC logic model and all that for the Mums Collective. So this is the social worker job lah. We don't ask Hidayah to do it because that will kill her. Okay, so that's one of the roles of the social worker in this collaboration, is to really help with this part of the process. Okay, and there are actual outcomes that we have for this thing. But sometimes, right, I have to acknowledge also that certain processes, like even member participation, right? Being able for Hidayah to come here and present to you, that's not part of the KPI. And those are very hard to be put in. But that's okay, as those come alongside. There are certain other outcomes that can be put in, and there is funding for this. Okay, so I have to thank you, CFS, for your
Thanks for
sponsorship.
that. Time's almost up. We will hear parting words from Adrian and then Hidayah, okay?
So, first of all, thanks Joyce for sharing just now. So I think end of the day, for what SGSC does, I would say we are quite unique on its own because as a social enterprise, we run an app that is totally for free, without considering whether there's any return of investment at all. It was just purely out of passion, and really a for-profit arm where we sell it as a service, but yet trying to make it affordable. So these are some of the things that we keep ourselves checked to make sure that we are still doing something that is meaningful, giving back to the society, yet at the same time be sustainable ourselves. So for all this, I guess there's still so much more that SGSCs can learn from all of you here. So if any chance that we can support your cause in terms of, I think some of the things that we're very capable in is in terms of supporting the lower income, supporting seniors in terms of active aging and providing them micro jobs, or even if you are looking at somewhat, we are definitely not soft N+1, but we are very passionate in terms of creating solutions and innovations related to helping seniors and caregivers out there. So if any one of you thinks that, hey, it sounds like interesting to work with SGSCs, can let us know. We're happy to work out something together with you to see how we can create a better community and maybe perhaps encourage more volunteerism to support caregivers out there. Thank you.
The mother should have the last word.
Okay, for us, I think Mums Collective is a good project where most mothers, I think not all, but most mothers can benefit from it. And I think that's this is one of a support system that the mothers need in their life at one point of time. So I think it's a very good movement to do, and I hope it can benefit more mothers out there.
Thank you very much, and round of applause for all our panelists.